Hey everyone, it's Jeff with Adventure Wagon. I'm here to introduce our 120 volt AC power add-on to our base 12 volt electrical package. This is another add-on package to the base 12 volt electrical kit, so it was designed to be housed inside the GOAT wheel well locker. So let's go through some of the contents of this package. Over here we've got our AC mounting plate. So this mounts the remote AC outlets as well as our remote switch for the inverter. We've got the remote outlets right there. This is the remote switch for the inverter. This is a cover to protect the back side of the wires on the remote outlets. We've got some zip ties for cable management, 175 amp terminal fuse. These are your three types of hardware for mounting the inverter plate, the AC outlet plate, as well as all of the accessories. We've got our inverter cables with some corrugated plastic tubing for protection. 3 rubber grommets for wiring pass-throughs to protect the wiring. This is the inverter mounting plate and the 2000 watt Renogy inverter. Now that we've gone through all the contents of the package, let's get into the assembly. The tools that you're going to need for this assembly are a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, a 4 millimeter Allen wrench, a ratchet with a 7/32 deep well socket, and your Phillips head screwdriver. So the first thing we're going to start with is mounting the inverter to the inverter plate. As a little bit of a reminder, we do provide Loctite in the kit, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to be skipping the Loctite. As far as the orientation of this plate to the inverter goes, you can see that the plate has a bit of a curved edge right here. So if that curved edge is facing you, the inverter is going to mount on top of it so that the terminal ends here are facing this direction. So curved edge here, terminal ends facing that direction. You may notice that we put the inverter mounting plate up on these pieces of cardboard. That's just to give a little bit of space for the hardware to come through on the other side. We're going to take 2 of these M4 screws and loosely thread them into the mounting holes at the back of the plate. So that's these 2 PEM nuts here and here, and just loosely thread those on. And we're going to take our inverter, and there's some slotted mounting holes on the mounting plate that we're just going to kind of tab those in underneath those screws that we loosely set in place. We're going to grab our remaining 2 screws and thread them into the other mounting points underneath the inverter here. All right. And once those are in place, we can tighten them down with a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. Once those 4 screws are tightened down, we're ready to take this assembly and mount it in the GOAT locker frame. We've got the frame up here facing backwards. We're going to be working from the back side of the GOAT locker frame. An important note here is that if you purchase the Shore Power add-on kit, you need to make sure that you install that before you go to install your inverter plate. For this step, you'll need 4 of your silver button head M6 screws and your 4 millimeter Allen wrench. So we're going to go ahead and get the inverter plate into place on the frame. If you have somebody to help you lift it into place, that's great. If not, it can be done with one person. So again, we're working on the back side of the GOAT locker frame. We're going to take this whole assembly and we're going to lift it in, sort of tilt it upwards from the back side, and then sort of pivot it over the charger mounting plate. And we're trying to align our front 2 mounting holes with the mounting points on the inverter plate. All right, and we're just going to loosely thread these first 2 screws in by hand. All right, and then we're going to finish up by threading in the final 2 mounting points. You may need to lift the plate up slightly to align it. But you kind of can't miss here. It's the only 2 holes that are aligned with the threaded PEM nuts on the inverter plate here. And then the last one right here. Okay. And then we're going to tighten those down with our 4 millimeter Allen wrench. Now we're going to flip this whole assembly around and we're going to assemble the outlet plate. So the parts that we're working with out of the kit for this step are the AC outlet mounting plate. the remote outlet with its shim and cover plate, the remote on-off switch for the inverter, and the black M3 screws with their nylock nuts. And the tools you're going to need for this job are 2.5mm Allen wrench, Phillips head screwdriver, and your ratchet with the 7/32 deep well socket. So we're going to start with the remote on-off switch for the inverter. So first we're going to grab our outlet mounting plate, and as far as orientation goes, there's going to be some laser cut writing on it. So we just want to make sure that we're working on the side where we can read the writing. It shouldn't be backwards or upside down or anything like that. And we're going to take our remote on-off switch, and it's going to go into the smaller rectangular hole on the bottom of the plate, so you can just insert it there. You can see that the mounting points for the on-off switch are going to line up with the holes on the mounting plate. We're just going to start threading the screws through the on-off switch one at a time and through the plate. These may be a little bit of a tight fit through the plastic of the on-off switch, and loosely thread on one of the nylock nuts. We're just going to repeat that on all 4 corners. And now that all 4 screws and nuts are in, we're going to go through and tighten them down with our 2.5mm Allen wrench and the 7/32 socket. Once you have all the screws tightened down, you can install the faceplate that comes with the remote switch. Next, we're going to install our remote outlet into the plate. So the first thing that we're going to do is grab the plug from the remote outlet, and we're going to feed it through the hole on the front side of the mounting plate. When you're ready to fit the outlets through the mounting hole, you just want to make sure that these white tabs are laid up against the outlet so it fits all the way through. Just be careful not to break those. And then we're going to take our shim, and we're going to do the same thing with the shim, feeding the outlet through the hole in the shim. Then we're going to flip it over. And again, we want those white tabs to come inside here. And then those mounting tabs are going to swing outward like that. And then one at a time, we're going to tighten these screws on the front to lock these white mounting tabs in place. As I was tightening the screw down from the front, I was holding this white tab outward on the back until it was tightened down. And we're just going to repeat that step with the other one. And as I tightened that assembly down, I was just making sure that the outlet was nice and square in its mounting hole. And now that that's assembled, we're going to install it in the goat locker frame. The only thing you're going to need for this step are 2 of your M6 button head screws and your 4mm Allen wrench. On the AC outlet plate, we're going to just be using 2 of the threaded PEM nuts. There's a set of 4, 2 on either side of the plate. We're going to be using the ones on the bottom. And those are going to align with these 2 mounting holes on the frame. And then from the inside of the frame, we're just going to align those mounting points together and loosely thread in each one of our M6 screws and tighten those down with your M4 Allen wrench. Once again, don't forget to use your Loctite on this step. And that's it for the AC outlet plate. Now that we've got all the accessories installed into the frame, we're going to start running some wiring. The first thing that we're going to do is install the rubber grommets to protect some of the sharp edges inside the frame. So you've got 3 grommets in total in this kit. There's 2 small ones and 1 large one. We're going to start with the 2 small ones, and we're going to be working on this side of the inverter. So again, these are going to protect the cables coming out of the inverter and running through these 2 holes through the frame. And these rubber grommets are pretty straightforward. You're just trying to insert them into the hole from either side and just seating them around the metal frame so they kind of go into the groove of the grommet. and the larger grommet goes in on the other side of the frame. For this grommet, we actually need to start with fitting it over the plug coming from the back side of the outlets first. So stick it over that plug, run it down the cable, and then we're going to take the whole cable and we're fitting it through this large hole in the transition of the frame. Run your grommet up over the cable and then seat it into place in the frame. Next, we're going to take the cable that comes with the remote switch for the inverter. We're going to plug that into the back side of the switch and run it through that same hole. Now we're going to pull the cables through that grommet and tidy up some of the cables on this side. Now we're going to take some of this corrugated tubing and fit it over both of those wires. The last little bit of this corrugated tubing is going to pass through the grommeted hole, and then do your best to tidy it up around the cables on the other side. Now that the corrugation is covering the wires, you can take 3 of your supplied zip ties and attach the wires to the frame. Last step is to plug in these 2 connections into the inverter. So we're working on this side of the inverter. They're going to come in through the back side of the frame and plug into the end of the inverter here. At this point, we're just tidying all this wiring up. It's a good idea to kind of preset your last zip tie in place to be ready to accept this bundle of wiring. So I'm just sending that one through and then back in on itself to start with. And then I kind of pre-bundled the wire coming out of the back of the remote on-off switch. And as best as I can, I'm going to bundle that with the outlet cable and try to seat it up against the edge of the frame as neatly as I can. This is one of the more finicky parts of this install, but once you get the hang of it, you're kind of looking for a finished product that looks something like that. The last step before moving over into installation in the van is to install the 2 cables coming out of our inverter. So we're going to grab those and work on this side. The only tool you're going to need for this job is your Phillips head screwdriver. So we've got our positive and negative cable for our inverter. And the first thing that we're going to do is remove the plastic covers on the terminal ends of the inverter. We're going to start with our positive cable here. First thing we need to do is feed it through the grommeted hole that leads to the positive terminal on the inverter. With this cable, we want to make sure that the lug is being installed in the terminal. So basically this should be flat, and we're installing it in this orientation. And we're going to stick it through the grommeted hole first, and then we need to stick the red plastic cap over the cable before we attach it to the terminal. So we will undo the terminal here. Save the hardware on the bolt and thread it back on by hand. We'll come back through later and tighten these connections. We're just going to repeat that process with the negative cable. Okay. We're going to leave these plastic caps loose for now because we're going to go back through and tighten these connections during the installation process. Once you've routed the cables for the inverter through the frame, that's the last step in the assembly of the 120 volt AC electrical system. The remaining parts of this kit are going to be used in the installation process, so look for that in the next video. If you have any questions at this point, feel free to reach out, give us a call, or email us at info@adventurewagon.com, and thanks for watching.